Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. 2025 will be remembered as a year when climate extremes turned from risk to reality across South Asia and Southeast Asia. Monsoon rains, supercharged by warmer oceans, have triggered catastrophic floods and landslides, as well as rare storm formations, testing our preparedness and resilience. So scientists have described some of these events as, quote, the new alarming reality rather than typical climate variability. So today on the show, we're going to sit down with one of the world's leading climate scientists to take stock of what these events are telling us about our climate today. So joining me on the show is Professor Emeritus Dr. Fredolin Tangang, who is an Emeritus Professor of Climatology and Climate Change at UKM, a Fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, and he is currently serving at Universiti Brunei Darussalam. He is a former Vice Chair of Working Group 1 of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is better known by its acronym IPCC. It is a UN body, a United Nations body, created to assess the science related to climate change. Welcome to the show, Prof. It's good of you to join me today. I'm hoping we could take stock of 2025. So let's start with a review of the year. If you were to, from a climatologist perspective, assess the year of 2025, how would you characterize it for us?
Well, thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me. Consider it. Sounds like very interesting program. I have been in many Astro AWANI program, but this is the first time, indeed. Yeah, it's good to discuss this.
Yes, it's good for us to consider this.
Yes, you know, when we talking about you know, climate, the scientific aspect of climate, this is like, you know, it's not like an everyday conversation of you know, men on the streets. This is something like you know, university course, university module that you're taking, you know, under geography or under, you know, ocean sciences or under atmospheric science. But today we have opportunity to discuss this. Yes. You know, yeah, 2025. I would say after the disasters that we have experienced, especially in Sumatra, in Hat Yai, southern part of Thailand, as well as in Vietnam. And, you know, if we go back the rest of 2025, actually, you know, if you look at, you know, the number of typhoons that we had in the Philippines, you know, typically they had, you know, around 20 typhoons a year, typhoon plus tropical storms. But this year, this is way more than that. So, you know, judging from this condition that we have experienced this year, I would say 2025 is rather unusual, unprecedented maybe. And I haven't mentioned about, we have also, you know, a couple of phenomena kind of occurring at the same time, compounding what we, you know, disaster that we experienced this year. First, we have La Nina. You know, whenever we have La Nina, this is a phenomenon that associated with the cooling of surface temperature in the Pacific Ocean, but it is also causing the wind to strengthen, the wind that blowing from the ocean toward our region, bringing all the moistures and warm waters. But at the same time, also we do have this so-called negative phase of the Indian Ocean dipole. This is like a La Nina of the Indian Ocean, and it's in fact it's almost the same, which is blowing the moisture into our region. So you know, if you can imagine Southeast Asia, on our right, you know, looking northward, on our right, Pacific Ocean, you know, you're getting a lot of moisture. You know, from the Indian Ocean, you're also getting a lot of moisture. This is actually kind of fuel to the extreme condition that we
Prof,
we're
so
experiencing.
when you say some of the weather events in 2025 have been unusual, unprecedented, how much of it can be explained by the weather variabilities like La Nina, like the negative phase? How much of that is weather climate variability? How much is that is climate change? How do we think this through? Whether this is
well, you cut me off there.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Please finish your thought.
Yes, there is something that I haven't mentioned. In addition to that, of course, we do have during that chaotic weather that we had in the last couple of weeks, we had cold surges as well.
Cold surges.
So cold surges is actually pulses of strong winds from the Siberian area, from the Asia continent. This is typical kind of phenomenon during northeast monsoon, where you have the strengthening of the pressure system over Siberia, and then this will push the cold air. But I would say, what we had, that causing rainfall over Aceh and also northern part of Malaysia at that time, consider the first wave of this, rather very strong, so. But every year we do have around 5 to 6 episodes. So far we had 2 during the northeast monsoon. So you have cold surges, you have La Nina, you have Indian Ocean dipole, but on the background we do have warming, that continue year after year because of global warming.
Okay.
So according to the IPCC, that's you mentioned this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Since early 1970s, okay, since early 1970s, the Earth climate system has been in the so-called relative imbalance, meaning that it's absorbing the heat from the solar radiation continuously, of course. That's what the climate system does. But in the normal way, it also balances out by releasing the top of the atmosphere into the outer space. But because of greenhouse gases getting more and more, so since 1970s, early 1970s, you have this so-called relative imbalance, meaning that what's coming in is almost the same year after year, but what's going out is becoming less and less. So it means the climate system is trapping more heat.
Right.
In more than 90% of this additional heat basically absorbed by the ocean. So the ocean is getting warmer and warmer, So this is the thing, and especially in Southeast Asian seas, where the sea is rather shallow. So compared to the, let's say, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, deeper. So some of this heat, distributed downward. But in the shallow sea, like in the sea surrounding, within and surrounding Southeast Asia is rather shallow, relatively shallow. So the heat stays within the, so 2025 is rather, as I said, unprecedented, maybe because of you have this natural climate variabilities, but in the background of it, you do have this global warming, climate change that perhaps you see this kind of unprecedented weathers becoming more and more frequent in the future.
On that note, Professor, how do we then think, at what point does a sequence of unprecedented weather events become more than just anomalies? And at what point does it start being a signal, a climate signal to us?
Well, we are talking about 2025. Last year, 2024, was declared as the warmest year on record. In fact, the global mean temperature has reached 1.55 degrees C above pre-industrial level, and this is the first time, the Earth temperature, the global mean temperature, basically exceeded the so-called 1.5 degree, which is the threshold of this Paris Agreement, that the world is trying to keep below it. There is a reason for this, because if we exceeded this, and then the impact to all kind of human system as well as ecosystem will becoming more and more if you exceeded this. And of course, when we are talking about impact, it's not just rainfall, it's not just flooding. You also have the sea level rise, and earlier I mentioned that more than 90% of this excess heat actually absorbed by the ocean. There is a reason for this, of course. And because of this, the so-called thermal expansion, it also causing the ocean to expand. In addition, of course, the melting of glaciers in the polar, in the Arctic and Antarctic region, So this causing sea level rise. And when you're talking about sea level rise, Southeast Asia is at the front of it, because we are surrounded by almost every country in Southeast Asia basically has its coastline, except maybe two countries landlocked, which is Laos and maybe Laos is the only country that does not have.
Okay. So that was one thing I was curious about, because a lot of your work has highlighted Southeast Asia as a very climate vulnerable region. And I wanted to talk about what makes a region climate vulnerable. Is it just because we are such a coastal region and therefore we are vulnerable to sea level rise? What else do you think it makes us that climate risk?
We can discuss this beyond this project. I mean, this program, of course. But I can describe this rather briefly. We are worried about climate because of its impact, the risk of impact, right? But the risk of impact is not just associated with the hazard climatic extreme becoming more frequent and so on because of climate change, and of course climate variability will still be there to drive these climate extremes. But when you're talking about the risk, it's also a function of, you mentioned vulnerability and also exposure. So when you consider all these three, I would say Southeast Asia region is at the front of it. And even it is at the current stage, we know countries that always been affected by typhoon, like Philippines, in Vietnam. Every year they're perhaps receiving 20, in this year more than 20 already. So these are actually categorized. This country actually on the top. I would say in the top 5 of more vulnerable countries. But most of these countries within this region are basically, developing countries. When you're talking about developing countries, they do not have capability to deal with, adapt to climate impacts and so on. So they are vulnerable countries. Malaysia is also a vulnerable country because every year we're receiving flood and so on. So, so as climate change becoming, serious, greenhouse gases becoming more and more, temperature becoming higher and higher, extreme event becoming more frequent and more intense. So that will drive the impacts, and together with exposure and vulnerability, certainly the risk increases, and of course, that also depends on how this country develop. If you're talking about unsustainable development, deforestation, that will increase, your exposure as well. And of course, a good example of this typhoon, recent tropical storm Senya that we learned from our neighboring countries.
Professor, at the start of our conversation, you said that climate change is not something that part of everyday conversation. Do you think that's changing now? That in the face of Malaysia facing the impact of climate change, facing extreme weather events, are people making that connection, that this is all the impact of the climate crisis that we are now having to live through?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, public, becoming more
aware
of the issue. I think this is the issue that need to be discussed. In the developed countries, is even becoming a political, issue to talk about.
Yeah.
Even to some extent, perhaps can decide on how the voting pattern in the developed countries, and perhaps this is also something that we can consider in the future, because you're talking about the impact of disaster is going to be felt by everyone, especially people, poor people, and they're losing their asset, their houses, everything during floods, So definitely something that need to be, But my worry about this region is that, if the world fail to limit these greenhouse gases, which is according to the science, according to the IPCC report, this warming has to be limited below 1.5 degrees, because if it goes beyond that 2 degrees, 3 degrees, and 4 degrees, then it will be a catastrophic for human civilization. But right now we are actually at the brink of it. You're talking about last year. You have already reached 1.55.
So we surpassed it already.
Yes, we surpassed it already, 1.55 degree above pre-industrial. So the question now basically whether the world would be able to limit this warming, and this is why we have this COP meeting. And recently, in November 10 until I think November 21st. We had COP 30 in Brazil. Of course, the number after that COP, 30, meaning they have 30 meetings. Every year they have meetings, so meaning 30 years discussing about climate negotiation. Maybe I can highlight here that there are two things very important that the world need to make a decision. One, in terms of limiting greenhouse gases. And according to the scientific report by the IPCC, if we were to limit warming by below 1.5, the current emission, which is around 60 gigaton CO2 equivalent. I'm sorry, pardon me, this unit.
That's
a little bit technical, but 60. The number is 60.
Okay.
If the world were to achieve this target under Paris Agreement, 1.5 degree, by 2030, which is like 5 years from now.
4 years.
4 years, 5 years.
That
has to be reduced by 50%. To about 20 to 30, and that is the science says that if we were to limit this, successful in limiting this, that is the trajectory.
That's okay.
In addition to that, of course, by 2050 we must achieve this net zero CO2. So net zero meaning whatever we produce as CO2, it has to be soaked up back by whatever system that we have, including the forest.
No more excess, right?
Yeah. No more excess. Yeah, no more excess. But we are nowhere near that kind of what the science says. Right. In fact, we are still about 65 gigaton CO2 equivalent now, and based on what has been agreed by, what has been promised or pledged by countries, this is what we call NDC. The nationally determined contribution. By 2030, we can only achieve about 51 gigaton. So a little bit of reduction, but this is still way much away,
nowhere
higher
near
than
the
20,
target.
30 degree, I mean 20, 30 gigaton we're talking about. So drastic, drastic cutting need to be achieved, and this is what they're supposed to discuss in
COP.
In COP.
Yes.
But in COP 30, no plan whatsoever, as far as I can understand, in how to achieve this. That's one failure. The other failure, of course, for developing countries, in order for them to take climate action in terms of mitigation as well as adaptation, they need finance.
Yeah.
So financing is one big factor of what is being discussed in COP 30 and the rest of the COP as well.
Climate financing.
Yeah. And in the previous COP 29 or COP 28, I could mix up the number there. It was recognized that the developing countries need financing in the order of 3 to 4 trillion.
That's right. I think it was in Baku last year, wasn't it?
Azerbaijan.
Yes, that's
3
right.
to 4 trillion.
Yes. Wow.
But what developed country can support a different unit, billion. So you're talking about two different units, billion and trillion, and even the billion at that time only 100 billion a year, and in COP 30 they increased that like threefold, only 300 billion. But 300 billion, you're talking about trillion. That's a different unit.
Yeah.
I don't know how many zeros behind.
many more.
So, yeah, that's a reality of it.
Does it frustrate you as a climate scientist, as a climatologist, when the science is so clear about the urgency of the climate emergency, and you have, the gathering of the world's climate champions saying, well, this is the best we can do?
Indeed, as a climatologist, as a scientist, this is really frustrating. You know the science, every year temperature is increasing. Every year you see new things, and this is why actually, keep me going in terms of how can we educate the public,
right.
And I started to have my own column in the newspaper, online newspaper, trying to translate my knowledge on the science into, something that a man on the street public can understand. Yeah, it's really frustrating, when you starting to understand the system is about to fail. The world, not to mention that, country that used to be leading on this is no longer part of it.
The U.S.?
Well, I mean, you mentioned that, no longer part of it, and so, and it's not only the U.S., but based on my understanding, reading, because of that also, it's kind of the initiative is no longer, many countries also seem to be not really on.
Yeah,
on
you mean there's the lack of urgency you're seeing?
Lack of urgency and lack of because this powerful country used to be the one that driving it is no longer part of it.
I understand.
So,
Prof, in the few minutes that we have left, we are a small nation, but we can take measures or take climate action to maybe avoid losses of life, economic losses, limit our own greenhouse gas emissions. We have a new environment minister in cabinet now. So what would you like to say, or what would you like to see our country prioritize if we want to be a country that is proactive in taking climate action?
Yeah, he's from Sabah, I think.
Yes,
very young minister. Usually, young minister, they appreciate issue like this. Young people appreciate issues on environment issues, especially climate change. Yeah, I would say for Malaysia, what happened recently is a wake-up call. We have already experienced, 3 of these tropical storms, including a recent one. Prior to that, we had, of course, tropical storm Greg that killed many people as well in Sabah 1996.
Yes.
And tropical storm Bami crossed Johor in 2001. So it's, and recently, of course, it's rare. But as climate change becoming more and more, moisture becoming more and more because of climate change, because of climate variability, and it just the likelihood of big flood that experience in our neighboring countries can happen here. So I would say we need to take care of own backyard as well. So adaptation, climate adaptation is important, especially flood, but not only flood. We have drought, we have heat waves, and so on. But go by the science of it. So be guided by the science. Not just doing it randomly or but again, we are part of the so the world community here in trying to address climate change. So be part of this UN IPCC effort in cutting down the emission, drastic reduction. I think it's not good, not only good for climate, but good for our own standing as well in the eyes of the world. This is a country that really paying attention to issues on environment, climate change.
That we're serious about our commitments, right?
We are serious, and we have to stop cutting forests arbitrarily. So deforestation must be a stop, I think, because sooner or later, if we have typhoon or tropical storm like Senja hitting us, it could be a disaster as well. So I hope this new minister will pay attention more to issues like climate change.
You and me both. Thank you so much, Prof, for being
so
on and lending us some of your analysis. I think it's such an important topic to really digest and think about more and more as part of our going into the new year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.